Today, I'm excited. I want to kick things off, and we're going to talk about a topic that every one of us at some point in our life, maybe even at some point in the last 24 hours, you have dealt with. And I want to start by painting a picture for you. Can you use your imagination with me at every campus? I want you to imagine that you've been hearing about a really incredible restaurant in town. It's brand new, and it is phenomenal. You went on Yelp, and they got 5-star reviews. And you've heard really good things about the service and the atmosphere. And so finally, you get an opportunity to go to this restaurant. And you get to the restaurant, and the parking is amazing. It's in a really cool spot in town. And you walk through the front doors, and they greet you, and they have incredible hospitality. And the ambiance and the atmosphere is second to none. And you sit down at the table, and you're doing that thing you do when you're looking at the menu and you have two options that look really good. Does anybody else ever struggle picking what you want at a restaurant? And so you're looking at these two items, and you've never had either, and both of them have pros and cons, but they both look incredible. And then the waiter says, "Can I take your order, sir? Can I take your order, ma'am?" And you say, "Can you please just go around the table? I'll be really fast." And then you look back down at the menu, and you look up again, and it's your turn again. And in a panic, you just pick exactly what you want, without thinking very much about it. And you're just sitting there, and your mouth is salivating, and you smell all of this glorious heavenly aroma wafting through the air. And finally, the kitchen brings your entree out to the table. The waiter has it on the tray. They place it in front of you. And just as you're getting ready to dig in, another server brings another tray out with the other entree that you almost picked. And they bring it to the table right next to you. And it is piping hot, sizzling off of the tray, and your meal's already kind of cold, and your meal tastes fine, but that meal looks incredible. You ever struggled with enjoying what looked amazing just 5 seconds ago as you compare it to the meal that you're missing out on? And so any joy or excitement or fulfillment or pleasure you would have gotten from this amazing meal right in front of you, it is completely sucked out of the atmosphere as you compare it to what somebody else has. That's what I want to talk about today. Maybe we could call it the grass is always greener syndrome. It's that battle that rages inside of us that desires what we do not have. It desires the thing that someone else has, what our neighbor has. And this can happen in 1,000 different ways. Let's just talk about how this might flesh itself out in your life. Maybe it's the feeling that rises up in you as you're staring at your neighbor's yard and they're installing a brand new in-ground pool as you float in your portable pool from Walmart. Maybe it's that little tinge of jealousy that rises up in your heart as that person at work gets the promotion that you were passed over for. Man, it could be all kinds of things, right? It could be that little bit of dopamine, that rush that you feel when something like not great happens to the person that's your friend. And it's like you don't even like that you felt that way, but you're like, man, they needed knocked down a few pegs. Like there's something ugly inside of us where we struggle. And then maybe it's just even that part of you that feels like lower than you should when good things happen to other people. Or maybe it's that sinking feeling of insignificance and insecurity when you see your friends check in on a tropical vacation and you're stuck at home on a staycation. And it's that part of us that wants to push other people down, lift ourselves up, compare, covet. Gore Vidal says it this way: every time my friend succeeds, I die a little. It's ugly, but it's honest, right? What is that about us and human nature that can't handle that? There's something in us that doesn't like when people have what we do not have, and we want to desire other people's things. We covet, we compare. Even the disciples struggled with this. So can I just tell you, you're in good company. Think about the Last Supper. We just shared in Holy Communion at every campus. This is the first ever communion. Jesus is having it with his disciples. There's a gravity and a weight to this moment, and it's a holy, sacred time. And they ask Jesus, they feel like this is the perfect time to ask him, "Hey, Jesus, which among us is the greatest?" That just felt perfectly normal to them. And I mean, this is going to be a moment that is written about for thousands of years to come. There's going to be paintings, these beautiful paintings that we're going to put on cathedrals of this moment. And here they are, and all they can think about is themselves. Yeah, Jesus, I know, communion, cross, I get it. But like when you're back from communion and the cross, like which one of us is going to be the greatest? And like when you're resurrected and you're up in heaven seated at the right hand of the Father, like who gets to sit next to you though? Like is it going to be Peter or John, or is there a seating chart, or will we do a lottery system? Like how do we know who's the greatest among us? And I don't know about you, but I have to imagine Jesus was a little bit annoyed, you know? When I think about the face Jesus was making, I just think of this meme, you know? Jesus just sighing in annoyance, sighs in Hebrew, you know? Guys, this is why we can't have nice things. You know, that's what I imagine. That's how God talks to me sometimes. Joe, what's wrong with you? Get your act together. I can't tell you how many times I'm supposed to be just enjoying a beautiful, holy moment with God, and my mind flips from God to me. I just have this propensity and this proclivity to think of myself more highly than I should. And you'd think living in the wealthiest country on the planet would maybe make it easier. Maybe if we live in a more wealthy place, we won't compare as much, but I actually think it's the exact opposite. I think we are so surrounded by people who are in a constant pursuit of more. Our whole world is marketing to us, spending billions of dollars every year, trying to convince us that what we have is not enough. I like to call it the mirage of more. And it's this thing inside of us that says, if I could just get to that more, if I could just have more money, if I could just have more things, if I could have more cars, if I could have more money in my savings and retirement account, if I could just have more fill in the blank, then I would be fulfilled, then I would be satisfied. And here's the funny thing about mirages. Once you get to the more that you thought would make you happy, that more disappears and you see a new more in the distance and you start chasing that again. But what did Jesus say? Jesus says, I have come to give you a better kind of more. I've come to give you life and life more abundantly. And so, okay, I want to live this life, but I'm still wrestling inside. If I'm honest, you would think that there's this certain magic number. If I could just earn this amount, then I would be satisfied. But I want you to think about this. Coveting is no respecter of persons. All of us deal with this affliction. You can covet someone if you have $30,000 a year that you're earning. You can covet someone if your salary is $30 million a year. You can covet somebody's Malibu. You can covet your neighbor's Maserati. And there's no correlation between having more and desiring less. And there's no magic number that you can earn where it all goes away, because this is not a salary issue. This is a soul issue. This is something that's going on deep inside of all of our hearts. And it might seem small, and it might seem like it's something that's just running in the background, but this is one of the deadly sins of suburbia. The grass is always greener on the other side. It's this constant desire to have what I do not have, to envy, to covet, to compare. And God knew that this would be a problem for mankind, so much so that he said, hey, I'm going to put this in the top 10 list of how to live your lives. It's a pretty big deal. Watch what he says here in Exodus chapter 20, verse 17. He says, do not covet your neighbor's house. Do not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. And that holds up pretty well, being that it's thousands and thousands of years old. But there are a few words that we don't use in our modern vocabulary. So I took it upon myself to modernize this a little bit. I was just wondering, how would God have written this to us in 2025? Can I read it to you? This is what I think God would have written if he wrote the 10 Commandments in 2025. Don't scroll through your neighbor's life wishing it was yours. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house, their spouse, their job, or their shiny new Range Rover. Don't envy their salary, their subscribers, their vacations, or their lifestyle. Don't covet their kids' perfect report cards, their perfectly staged closets, or their perfect beach bodies bought with a personal trainer named Gavin. Thou shalt not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. So what do I do with this? Obviously, if it's in the 10 Commandments, it's a pretty big deal. And I know I'm not supposed to do it. But man, sometimes it's a daily fight. Can anybody agree with that? It is a daily fight not to covet, not to compare, to be content with what God has given me. And we have to know this. Coveting comes at a great cost. And coveting will take you off course in what God has called you to do. Coveting will have you dating somebody when God told you to wait, because it's cuffing season and everybody else is going to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend to bring with them to Thanksgiving dinner. And never mind if they serve Jesus or if he's first in their life. I just need somebody. Coveting will have you buying a car you can't afford because you saw your friends post that new car photo at the dealership and now you need one. Coveting will have you remodeling your kitchen again, even though you just remodeled it a couple years ago because you went to your friend's house and they have the brand new countertops and they got that Tesla fridge, like the one with the Wi-Fi connection and the flat screen TV. And now all of a sudden my fridge, it worked just fine and it kept things cold just fine a day ago, but now it doesn't do it for me. I know I have the iPhone 14 Pro and that was great, but now there's like the iPhone 67 Max Pro and my iPhone looks like garbage, right? Man, coveting will take you off course in your calling. And here's the thing, comparison always calls to me from somewhere else. It has me looking at the couple across the street, the kids across the street, the car across the street, the house across the street. And here's the problem. It is really hard to love my neighbor when I covet my neighbor. It is really difficult to care for my neighbor in the world around me when I compare to my neighbor. So what does God want us to do with this? How do we live a life of contentment? How do I defeat the grass is always greener syndrome? That's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to give you 3 simple takeaways. These are things that you can make your Mondays look different tomorrow. It could change your life if you begin to put these into practice. Here's the first one. If you're taking notes at every campus, write this down. Put down the binoculars, turn on the sprinklers. Put down the binoculars and turn on the sprinklers. Because the grass is always greenest where you water it. And contentment does not grow in a vacuum, and contentment does not grow by default. You need to know this. I have to cultivate contentment. And I believe God is inviting us to put down the binoculars of what's better in everybody's life. Oh man, their kids listen to them the first time. They never have to even count to 2. I have to count to 16 and a half. Oh man, they always have the freshest pair of sneakers and it just seems like they have all the nicest things. And oh my gosh, are they on another vacation? How many vacations can you take in 1 year? The binoculars of what's better. They never seem to fight in their marriage. Oh man, they have all kinds of people that support them. I don't have any friends that are here in my life that even care about me. The binoculars of what's better. I believe God is inviting us to put down the binoculars of what's better and start watering our own grass. Turn on the sprinklers. And we could talk about all kinds of different ways that this can take shape in our life. I know we have tons of married people here, or maybe future married people, and we're going to help you out today, all right? So let's talk about it. How can we cultivate contentment in our marriage? This is a good one. There was a study conducted by the University of Georgia, and they took a look at 468 couples that had been married for a really long time, and they reported having a high amount of satisfaction in their marriage. They were married so long, and it wasn't just that they loved their spouse, they still liked their spouse. You know what I'm saying? That's an accomplishment. They weren't stuck together. They actually chose to be together. And they said, we're going to look for commonalities in these 468 couples and see, is there one common thread that we can identify in every one of their relationships? This is interesting. You know what they didn't find? They didn't find that every one of them had chiseled bodies and washboard abs. They didn't find that they prayed together 3 times a day, which, by the way, you should pray with your spouse. Now, you know what they discovered? This was the one thing they all had in common. It was the frequency in which they said, thank you. Isn't that interesting? In other words, great marriages are built on gratitude. Speaking of gratitude, as we head into Thanksgiving, I think this is just an appropriate time to maybe get a refresher on gratitude and thanksgiving, thankfulness to God. The Apostle Paul talks about it quite often. 1 Thessalonians 5:16 says, always be joyful, never stop praying, be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus. he says something similar in Philippians 4:11. Watch this. I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstance. What's he saying? I had to learn how to cultivate contentment in my life. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. You know, over the years, I've gotten to officiate quite a few weddings, and you know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like when a couple stands at an altar and says, I'm going to love you for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. It's saying, hey, I'm going to put down the binoculars of the marriages that look better, and my I do is not a one-time I do at an altar. An altar is a place where something dies. Oh, a sacrifice happens at an altar. Something comes there and dies there. So marriage is also a funeral, and so I'm going to die to myself every day for the rest of my life. I can't tell you how many years. I'm embarrassed to say this. We're about to celebrate 18 years married, my wife and I. How many years I tried to change my wife to be more like me? Way too many to count. I'm a slow learner. And I remember one day, I was just kind of like praying and probably complaining a little bit about little things here or there in our marriage. And God said, hey, Joe, I want you to stop trying to change Aaron to be more like you. And I want you to start trying to make you more like me. And I'll work on Aaron. You be the husband. Let me be the Holy Spirit. Ouch. That's how God talks to me. I don't know about how he talks to you. What's he saying? Cultivate contentment. Water your own grass. I'm telling you, it will change things. Maybe God is inviting you to put down the binoculars of what's better way out there. And he's saying, I want you to cultivate contentment, and I want you to be thankful and grateful for what I have blessed you with that is right in front of you. Let's just get real practical. I'm not so sure how healthy it is for my soul to constantly scroll through other people's lives and look at how great their husband or their wife or their kids or their car or their house are. Can I just tell you, I like social media. I think it has its place. I have an account. But we have to be careful. In the almost 20 years that I've been pastoring, I can't tell you, it's countless at this point, how many couples have sat in my office or I've gone to a coffee with them and they are devastated by infidelity and divorce. They never thought it would happen to them. And we start to trace it back to like what were the little seeds that started this massive problem and this massive rift. And almost always you could see these little seeds, these little glimpses and glances of comparison on Facebook or Instagram. It's the little message that somebody sends you that you used to date when you were in high school. It's just the little thing that grew into something really big. And I'm just telling you, there's something God wants to do to protect us. And can I just tell you what I've noticed in my life, and I've seen this in so many people's lives? The day when you're upset with your spouse and the day when they're not meeting your needs and the day when you're angry and you're all over the place, that'll be the day that the person at work gives you the compliment. That'll be the day when somebody slides into your DMs. Because the devil knows what he's doing. He's smart, he's crafty. Can I just give you a real example so that you know that pastors at Believers Church are out here in these streets just like you, and we're doing our very best just to love Jesus and obey the Word of God in everyday life? I was on a trip to pick up some boxes at MacBid. Does anybody else use MacBid in here? So my wife, she stages houses, and she has a knack for finding some really cool things. And so we'll find them on MacBid and use them in those houses. Or every now and then we'll flip them on Facebook Marketplace. It's a nice side hustle. So I've gotten pretty experienced in just about any warehouse within a 50-mile radius outside of where we live. And I know my way around those warehouses. And so about a month ago, I was at the MacBid in Canton. And I'm going down the aisles, and this is just a pro tip. I don't like to take my cart when it's loaded up down the aisle because inevitably there's going to be like 50 other people that I've got to avoid, and there's boxes protruding into the aisle. So if the box is small enough, I leave my cart at the end of the aisle. I walk to my little bay. I grab what I need, put it over my head, and then I put it on the cart. Too much information, but just letting you know so I can set up the story. So I find my box that day, and it really wasn't that heavy of a box. It probably looked way more impressive than it was, but I put it over my head. So I'm kind of like walking through the aisle back to my cart, and this employee at MacBid, it was a lady, probably close to my age, this is what she said to me. She said, "Wow, you're really strong. You really know your way around the warehouse." She literally said that. So I said, "Thanks, I'm here all the time for my wife." You know what I'm saying? You can't make this up. This is what she said to me. She said, "Oh, well, you don't have to tell your wife that I said that. Just tell her it was a guy." And I said, "Get thee behind me, Satan. The devil is a liar. I will not do." No, actually, I didn't say that at all. I was like so taken back that I just laughed nervously and I just walked away, you know? And you know I went right home and told my wife. Come on, somebody. But can I tell you something? I wasn't in any way tempted, not in the slightest. First of all, because I married way up and my wife is beautiful. But way more importantly, because my wife waters my grass. Because she cultivates contentment in my relationship. And there's nothing that lady can say to me that she hasn't said to me 1,000,000 times over. And I'm just telling you, if we could get in the habit and in the rhythm of loving the grass that God blessed us with and stop looking at the grass that's greener on the other side and turn on the sprinklers, if we could water our grass, God would do something beautiful on the inside of us, and that comparison would begin to melt away. And can I just give you a helpful thought? That green grass that looks so much greener on the other side is AstroTurf anyway. And I know Doug says that his wife lets him golf 5 days a week, but what Doug doesn't tell you is that he and his wife can't stand each other and they don't like to be under the same roof, and so he gets away from her as often as he can. All that glitters isn't gold. And I know Kelsey's kids look so put together on that picture on your fridge, right? Oh God, why can't my family be like that? And meanwhile, she had to take 300 pictures to get that one good one, and she yelled at her kids 12 times and bribed them with cake pops and cried on the way home. It's AstroTurf. So we got to put down the binoculars, turn on the sprinklers. Here's the second one. Oh, this is important. We've got to kill comparison. We've got to kill comparison. Colossians 3:5. Watch the wording here. This is interesting. Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. What an interesting way to phrase it. It's almost as if he's saying, man, comparing, coveting, it's not just this cute little kitty cat that I coddle and it's not a big deal and it's just kind of my pet that I take around. No, it's a ferocious lion that will eat my lunch if I let it. And I've got to confront it and combat it. I've got to starve that thing or it's going to take me out. I've got to kill comparison. Speaking of starving that thing, this is why fasting is so important. I know this is like one of our biggest meals of the year coming up, and so forgive me for bringing it up. But in a week of feasting, can I just remind you that next month we're going to fast as a church? Come on, somebody. Yeah, all 5 of us. We're excited. It was unfair of me to bring it up. I should have never done it, but I just need to talk about it for a second. Man, this is like the secret sauce to why God moves in our church. It's moments where we fast and we starve that part of ourselves that does not want to please God, and we feed that part of ourselves that wants to please God. 1 Corinthians 9:27, Paul would talk about putting his body under all the time. Like he just really had a knack for this. And he says this in 1 Corinthians 9:27, but I buffet my body and I make it my slave. Buffet means to discipline. Here, I had been reading this wrong my whole life. I thought he said buffet. So that's my problem, I guess. Now, have you noticed that when you feed one part of your flesh, it doesn't grow in just that area. It grows in other areas. You feed it here, it pops up here and here and here. It's like I can feed my face, but it's going to grow a lot of different parts of my body. It goes to my hips and my thighs and my stomach and my face and you name it. It doesn't just grow in compartments. Let me give you an example. If I struggle with self-control in the food that I put in my mouth, I might also struggle with self-control in gossip that comes out of my mouth. If I struggle with haughty eyes and pride and thinking of myself more highly than I ought to, I might also struggle with lustful eyes. Because This does not grow in compartments. When you feed one craving, you strengthen them all. And this is why fasting is so important, because fasting is this statement that I am making to my flesh that it does not run the show. I'm going to live by my Spirit. This is why Galatians 5 says, if you live by the Spirit, then you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. Walk by the Spirit, you won't walk by the flesh. I've got to feed the part of me that wants to honor God and starve the part of me that doesn't. One preacher said it this way: if my flesh wants 2 cookies, I'm going to give it 1 cookie. If my flesh wants to binge watch Netflix, I'm going to make it watch a single episode. If my flesh wants to gossip, I'm going to pray for that person. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to confront it head on. Now let's apply this to comparison. I think there's levels to this. So here's entry level killing comparison, okay? Entry level is stop comparing and stop envying. Let's just imagine that something good happens for someone around you and you're tempted to compare and say, God, why did that happen for them and it didn't happen for me? They don't deserve that. They did da-da-da-da-da. Entry level is I'm not going to compare. I'm not going to envy. I'm not going to covet. That's great. And some of us are there, and congratulations. That's better than you were yesterday. But here's the highest level of living. Highest level of living is I'm not only going to not envy and not compare, I'm going to celebrate when other people succeed. And I'm telling you, you want to kill comparison and stop it in its tracks, start to celebrate when other people succeed. It does something inside of you. I've learned to become the biggest fan of the people that I want to covet and envy the most. Number one, because I like to just thank God, if you can do that in their life, I thank you, that means you can do it in mine too. But also, and maybe less selfishly, I can just say, God, if you never did that for me, if that wasn't in your plan for my life at all, thank you for Jesus. Thank you for the cross. If you never gave me another thing a day in my life, I'm thankful for everything I already have. I'm telling you, you will kill comparison faster than you can snap a finger. I have had to confront comparison in my life. Let me give you another example. You know, as a pastor, I'm embarrassed to say that for many years in my ministry, I struggled with comparing myself to other pastors. And this is the ugly truth. Probably for the first 12, 15 years, if I'm being honest. I'm at year 20. If I heard something positive about another preacher in town, another church, I wouldn't say anything negative, but all of a sudden I'd get this sinking feeling and it would almost hurt me physically. Like it was not pretty. And one of two things would happen. Either I'd feel really prideful and I'd think, man, what do they have that I don't have? Someone would tell me, hey, pastor, I'm going to go to this other church in town, and I'd bless them, but I'd be thinking to myself, man, good luck, because they don't have this, you know, and like I know it's ugly, but that's what I'm thinking. But way more often than not, I would get insecure, and I would think, man, I don't blame you. Like, they're incredible, and I feel like an imposter half the time, and I'm just trying to figure this thing out. And so God began to, one step at a time, slowly work this out of me. And he'd ask things of me that would make me kill and confront comparison. So it's been 5 years ago now. It was right during the quarantine. Remember, we weren't gathering, and we were getting ready for Easter. Still to this day, one of my favorite Easters we've ever had at Believers Church. So many cool things God did. So I was doing the normal pastor thing, telling people, here's when we're meeting. And I was going to do a post on social media, and I heard God say this loud and clear. I want you to also tell them about other churches in town. And I was like, oh, get thee behind me, Satan. Not doing that. And he said, no, I want you to. He said, you have reached with people that are on your Facebook friends list and Instagram, and they're never going to come to Believers Church, but other churches can reach them and speak their language better than you can. You can reach people they can't. They can reach. And I said, okay. And the very fact that I didn't want to do it told me I needed to. It exposed something in my heart that was not right. So I remember I was at my iPad, and I went to type, and it just hurt a little bit, you know. Grace Fellowship, Northmar. Just kidding, I love you guys. You know what I mean. But can I just tell you, one line at a time, as I began to tag them in my post, and then I was just throwing in things I liked about them, and like I was just getting kind of generous with it. It started to get kind of fun, and I just started typing away. And by the time I was almost done, it was like with every line, that grip of comparison, that grip of coveting, that grip of envy and pride began to loosen. And I started to feel contentment and joy that I could not explain. And I'm telling you, if you could learn to confront the things in your soul that are holding you down, it would free you so much. Can I give you a really encouraging thought in church today? Discipleship is a constant march towards death. Aren't you glad you came today to be encouraged at Believers Church? Jesus will first invite you to come and live, but he will ultimately invite you to come and die. Come and live, experience the abundant life. But then he says, if you want to be my disciple, you're going to have to deny yourself and pick up your cross and follow me. I must decrease, he must increase. Discipleship will be the death of me if I do it right. But I'm telling you, as you start to die to that, it changes desires in you. God begins to rewire the way you see people. He begins to rewire the way that you see success. And if every time my friend succeeds, I die a little, that just means more of me still has to die. Galatians 5:24 says, those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Comparison can't be managed. It must be crucified. We got to kill it. And comparison dies when I die to myself. So I put down the binoculars. I turn on the sprinklers. I kill comparison. Here's the final one. It's going to be the shortest point of the day. It's the most important. I have to find the shepherd. Number 3, I have to find the shepherd. Remember, cultivating contentment is a focus issue. I was thinking about this as I'm just praying through, God, what would you have us put in our hearts as the final thought, the bow on this series, as we head into the holidays, as we get into the big give? What's the final thing you want on our minds? And I was just praying and asking God, and I had this thought come to me. I wonder how much easier it would be to stop looking at the grass that's greener on the other side of the fence if I could just find a better kind of grass. Let me tell you what I mean. I think all of us are familiar with Psalm 23. Some of us have it memorized. We did a series on this earlier in the year. Can you just read it with a fresh set of eyes with me at every campus online? Watch this. You, Lord, are my shepherd. I will never be in need. This is good. You let me rest in fields of green grass. You lead me to streams of peaceful water. You refresh my life. You know what I've discovered? The grass is always the greenest in his presence. And did you notice what he said? I will never be in need. Man, so every time I'm confronted with comparison and looking what other people have and looking at the needs in my life and the wants in my life, I can remember the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Everything that I need is found in him. How did God introduce himself to Abraham in the Old Testament? He said, I am your great and exceeding reward. And it's so easy for that to get convoluted, and we think if I follow Jesus and serve him, then the way I measure success in my relationship with him is how many things I acquire and how blessed I am. And listen, the blessing of the Lord is a real thing, and he adds no sorrow to it, but the real blessing is to be in his presence. It's to abide in him. And when I have Jesus, I have everything that I need. The greenest grass is found in his presence. Can we just go back at the very end of this message to Philippians 4? Remember the Apostle Paul. I have learned the secret of being content. Time out. Anytime you hear somebody that's written 2/3 of the New Testament in the Bible say, I have a secret on how to be content, I think we ought to pay attention. In any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. The secret to being content is finding the good shepherd. The secret to being content is Jesus. I like to say it this way. If Jesus isn't enough, I just haven't experienced enough of Jesus yet. And if there are things inside of my soul, longings inside of my soul, and I keep finding myself going to other things and other people, other relationships, can I even just say it this way? Your spouse will never satisfy your soul. The first commandment, thou shalt put no other gods before me. The last commandment, thou shalt not covet. I can never stop coveting until I put God at the first priority part of my life. You can't have the second without the first. I would submit to you that David would have never coveted his neighbor's wife Bathsheba if he could have been reminded of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I have need of nothing. So God, even if I desire that, I just thank you that you're my greatest desire. And I choose not to covet and not to compare, but to thank you for what you've blessed me for. It'll change your life. I'm going to invite you to bow your heads and close your eyes at every campus. I want to say this before I forget. Every weekend at Believers Church, we have an amazing team of people at each campus that want to pray with you. They would love to have you come to the front to this altar area here in Boardman. You can drop your prayer requests online, and we'll pray with you. So please do that after the service. But maybe you're listening to this message and you're thinking, man, I want to experience what you're talking about, Joe. And I've tried everything that this world has to offer, and it is not satisfying my soul. I want to experience what you're talking about. As we receive communion today, we're reminded Jesus is the bread of life. He's the only thing that can satisfy the holy hunger deep inside of your soul. It's him. And maybe growing up in America, you grew up in church, and maybe you've been baptized, and maybe you're a member at a church. Maybe it's this one, and those are all beautiful things, but they are not the thing that helps you come into a relationship with this God who created you and loved you. The way to do it is to come through Jesus and his sacrifice. And he says, this is a free gift called salvation. You could not earn it if you wanted to. You could not earn it if you tried. And so I want to just invite you at every campus, if you cannot remember a moment in your life where you said, Jesus, I'm placing you in the first position of my life. You're sitting in the driver's seat. You're calling the shots. Can I invite you to do that today? And there's a church full of people that are going to help you pray. I'm telling you, it'll change you from the inside out. Church, can you help us pray? Repeat this after me. Dear God, thank you for Jesus. Thank you for the sacrifice that he made for me, for the exchange, my sin for his righteousness. And I couldn't earn it if I wanted to, so I freely receive it. I am a Christian, and I won't be perfect, but every day I'll follow you with everything I've got. In Jesus' name, amen. Heads bowed, eyes closed at every campus. In the month of October, we saw 97 people make this decision to follow Jesus at all of our campuses. And I have a feeling today there's more people that have made that decision. And we want to send you home with a Bible. It's just our resource to you. Inside of the Bible is a bookmark that has next steps that will help you in your journey of faith here at Believers Church and with God. And so if that's you at every campus, I'm just going to invite you to do one thing very simple. I want you to just raise your hand and wave it to me. Everyone else's heads are bowed and eyes are closed. If that was you and you decided to follow Jesus today and you say, Joe, I'm excited about it in Boardman, at TCI, online, here in the room. If you raised it once, raise it again, and our hosts are going to put a Bible in your hand. We're so excited for you. Congratulations. If you should have raised it before, but you didn't, raise it up in the air. If you're online and you prayed that prayer and you want a Bible, just text BELIEVE to the number that we're putting up on the screen and we'll send you a Bible. We're just excited for you.